Assalamu alaikum everyone, this is Mr. Middlepath, and in this video this is gonna be part 2 of the marriage series, and in this video we're gonna cover a response to a poll that I made after my first video. I asked for several different options of what you all wanted, and the overwhelming response for the topic that everyone wanted to see covered, that most of you wanted to see covered, was the best qualities that one should look for in a man or a woman when they're considering getting married. So to go over that, I'm going to go into a story from the Quran. This is Surah Al-Qasas, starting from verse 23. And we're going to go over the story first so that you guys can have the background, and then we're going to go over the qualities that the verses talk about. And there's also lessons of marriage within these verses that we're going to go over briefly, inshallah. ولما ورد ماء مدين وجد عليه أمة من الناس يسقون ووجد من دونهم امرأتين تذودان قال ما خطبكما قالتا لا نسقي حتى يصدر الرعاء وأبونا شيخ كبير. So this is the story of Musa alayhi salam. He had accidentally killed someone while he was living in Egypt, and he ran away. And as he's running away, eventually he goes towards the city of Madian, and he sees a watering area where people are watering their animals, and he sees two women there, and he goes up to them and he says, "What's wrong with you? Like, why aren't you what's the problem? Why aren't you guys watering your animals?" And they said, "We're not going to water the animals while the men are there, and our father is an old man, he can't really do it either." فسقى لهما ثم تولى إلى الظل فقال رب إني لما أنزلت إلي من خير فقير. So he waters the animals for them, and he says, and he gives them the animals back, and then he says, "Oh Allah, from whatever you send, I am very in need of whatever help you give me." Because remember, he just run away. He's a runaway now. He doesn't have anything with him. فجاءته إحداهما تمشي على استحياء قالت إن أبي يدعوك ليجزيك أجر ما سقيت لنا فلما جاءه وقص عليه القصص قال لا تخف نجوت من القوم الظالمين. And one of the women comes to him walking with modesty and says, "Our father wants to reward you or give you a reward for the help that you've given us." So he goes and he meets the father, and he tells him his story about how he killed someone by accident and he ran away from Pharaoh, and he was living with Pharaoh, and Pharaoh obviously thought he was a god, and this is another story. We're not going to get into that. But he tells the man the story, and the man says, "Don't worry, you are saved now from the unjust people." قالت إحداهما يا أبت استأجره إن خير من استأجرت القوي الأمين. And then one of the women says, "O father, hire him. Indeed, the best of people that you can hire are the strong and honest people." Or the Amin means trustworthy. قوي means strong. And then the father says, قال إني أريد أن أنكحك إحدى ابنتي هاتين على أن تأجرني ثمانية حجج فإن أتممت 10 فمن عندك وما أريد أن أشق عليك ستجدني إن شاء الله من الصالحين. And then the father says, "I want to have you marry one of my daughters, either of them, and in exchange you will work for me for 8 years. And if you want to work for me for 10 years, then that's your choice. But I want a minimum of 8 years. And I don't want to make this difficult or tiring for you. You will find that I am actually a good person." Salih means someone who's righteous, who does good. And Musa alayhi salam says, قال ذلك بيني وبينك أيما الأجلين قضيت فلا عدوان علي والله على ما نقول وكيل. He says, okay, Musa says, okay, this agreement between you and us is good, and whatever I pick, whether I pick 8 years or 10 years, then there's no animosity towards me. Like, don't get mad at me if I choose 8 years and not 10 years. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is between us as the witness and the one who is the witness of this agreement. So those are the verses of the Quran, and in it we learn a lot of things. But before we get into all of that, just a little bit more detail in the story. Musa alayhi salam, when he ran, and he actually, yeah, when he ran and he found the two women, we can extract a lot of lessons. He walked up to them and he said, "What's the matter? What's wrong?" And he helped them out. And when he helped them out, he didn't go and he didn't come back to them and say, "Oh, how is everything? What's up? How are you doing?" and start chit-chatting with them. He saw that there was an issue and he went and helped them. And then after he helped them, he went on his way and he left. And this shows gender relationships in Islam between the brothers and the sisters, between men and women. And when I say brothers and sisters, I don't mean blood brothers and sisters. I mean your brother and your sister in Islam. And it shows that as a man, when I see a sister in Islam, she's my sister, but she's not my friend. We don't have friendships between the genders in Islam, more so that we have brothers and sisters in Islam. And this shows how one should conduct themselves when in front of someone of the opposite gender. This is a whole other topic in and of itself. This is not the topic of this video. If you guys want me to make a video on this, please let me know in the comments. But this is just kind of showing you how the behavior is between the man and the woman, because that's something that is to be observed when you're looking to marry someone. How do they interact with people of the opposite gender? Are they too open in a way that's un-Islamic, or are they reserved and have respectful boundaries when they are in situations where they must deal with someone of the opposite gender? So that's one. And then the next thing is that later on, when the women leave with their animals, well, one of the women comes back, and this is after some period of time, because she said that my father wants to reward you for the work that you did. So clearly she went back with her animals to her father, and she came back and she said, "Hey, this guy helped us." And the father said, "Well, tell him to come so that we can reward him for this work that he did for us and this help that he gave us." And the woman mentioned in the Quran, وَجَاءَتْ إِحْدَاهُمَا تَمْشِي عَلَى اسْتِحْيَاءٍ. She came walking to him with modesty. And istihya, the root word is hayat. Hayat, something that is hay is something that is alive. So the person that is modest is alive. And the person who has no shame is like dead. They have no shame, they have no capacity of self-reflection, because they're not ashamed of their actions. How can someone change themselves or better themselves or feel that they did something wrong if they're not ashamed of what they did in the first place? So the one who's not ashamed of themselves is incapable of growing, is incapable of getting becoming more emotionally mature. So modesty is a form of life. How can you have a living home if your spouse has a dead heart, if they lack modesty? So this is the number one quality. This is the first thing that was mentioned. The number one quality is hayat. Having modesty, having shyness. This is very important. And it is mentioned of the woman that she came walking with shyness. So yes, she had, just like Musa, how he interacted with the girl, with the two women, and he said what he needed to say, and he helped them, and he left, and he didn't stay longer than that. So the woman came, and she said what she needed to say, and the Quran doesn't give unnecessary details. It says very clearly here, جاءت تمشي على استحياء. It clarified that she didn't just come walking to him and talking to him, she came walking to him with modesty, because she had to deal with him at that point. So she came walking to him with modesty. This is the number one quality that a man should look for in a woman, is shyness and modesty. And for a man, yes, a man should also have modesty as well. And shyness is something, I'm using shyness and modesty interchangeably, but these are both things that are interconnected. And in our culture, in Western culture particularly, shyness is looked at as something negative. It's looked at as a weak type of quality. And that is simply not the case. Prophet Muhammad ﷺ was also described as a very shy individual. However, the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ also went on battles and fought wars. So clearly, this goes against the Western definition, or the Western culture's definition of shyness. You know, shyness is usually looked at as meek and not being able to stand up for their rights. And obviously, not being able to stand up for your rights is actually not a good quality. So to put it in very simple terms, because I don't want to make a whole other video topic on something else, but to put it in very simple terms, if someone has an assertive personality, that could be a good thing. But if someone has an assertive personality in such a way that they trample upon the rights of others, then this is definitely a negative trait. And if someone is a shy person, that's a very good thing. If someone is so shy, right, shy, I'm putting it in quotations now, that they cannot speak up when an injustice is going on, or they cannot stand up for themselves when an injustice is going on, then this becomes a negative trait, right? So we need balance in all things. Clearly, when when justice was happening and the father wanted to compensate Musa alayhi salam for his work, the woman was still able to do that job. She didn't say, oh, I'm too shy to go talk to him. She went and talked to him and she said what she needed to say. So modesty and shyness. And next we see that Musa alayhi salam goes to speak with the father, and the father says, I want to hire you. The woman says, you should hire him, right? The best person that you can hire, al-qawi al-amin. So now we go to the qualities that the man should have, right? That's mentioned for the man is strength and honesty, right? Strength and trustworthiness. And these are both things are needed, right? Because a strong person without honesty is just going to, is basically a tyrant. And an honest person without strength is basically a meek person who can't stand up for his rights and subsequently can't take care of the family. And in the story, so it goes that when Musa alayhi salam was helping the two women out and the father with the watering the animals, he had went to the watering hole and he either made a way between all the guys, or there was said that there was one area of the watering hole that was covered by a giant rock, and he moves that giant rock out of the way and he brings the animals to that area and they drink from that section of the watering hole that was covered by the rock. So clearly Musa alayhi salam is very, very strong. Now, today we're not strong like Musa alayhi salam is strong. These are prophets, so they have a different type of strength. But what's meant here, and what could be meant, is competent, being very good at what you do. That is strength. You know, you have strength. Strength is not just physical and muscular. Strength is also mental. Strength is also emotional, right? To have that willpower. So someone who's strong and competent, good at what they do. And also because you need to have something that you're competent at in order to provide for your family, right? So Musa alayhi salam is very strong. He can be a very good animal herder, right? He's competent at that, and he's shown it because he's watered the animals when the other people weren't able to, right? And the second thing is honesty, right? You need to be trustworthy. How can you entrust someone to your body, right? And your future upbringing of your children, if you have them, if the brother that you want to marry has not shown the qualities of trustworthiness? And yes, he must be tested. This is why in the previous video I talked about how not, in the past people used to get married very quickly, and nowadays it's advisable to prolong the engagement period, not too much that you could slip into something haram, but just enough to see if any red flags come up, because that honesty is very important. And the same thing with the brothers looking at the modesty and the shyness of the woman. Just because she wears a hijab doesn't mean she's modest. In places like Yemen and Saudi Arabia, it's very common to wear niqab. So just because someone wears a niqab doesn't mean that they're modest or shy. Now, if someone wears a niqab in a Western country where no one wears it, then that's very different. But if someone's doing the behaviors that everybody else is doing, it doesn't mean necessarily that they're modest or shy. Some women grow up in families where they never got the chance to wear hijab, or they never learned about it. However, when it comes to interacting with people of the opposite gender, they have very strong boundaries, and they don't let people transgress upon those boundaries, and they're very aware of these types of interactions, and they don't let themselves get too close with guys. And other women that wear hijab can be very flirtatious. So one should look at that and be very aware of that and give themselves time for those red flags to come up. Same thing with a woman looking for a man. Just because a man wears a thobe, goes to the masjid and has a beard, doesn't mean that they're not dishonest, doesn't mean that they are not trustworthy. There is many cases of people who have the religious outer look, however they can be disrespectful or even abusive to their significant other, to their wives. So looking at the story of Musa, we see that the two main qualities is strength and honesty, and the main quality for the woman is modesty and shyness. And then finally the father says, okay, you work for me for 8 years or 10 years, and Musa alayhi salam says, okay, I'll do that, this is our deal, right? So having a deal and an understanding between the family is also very important. And the father says, look, I'm going to be righteous when it comes to dealing with you. And Musa alayhi salam says, don't hold it against me if I choose 8 and not 10. The Prophet, peace be upon him, was asked whether Musa alayhi salam did 8 or 10 years, and he said that Musa alayhi salam did 10 years. This was what was mentioned in the hadith. So Musa alayhi salam did the 10 years, right? And then after that, he went on his way, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made him a prophet. So those 10 years, he was working for the Father. So that is the two main things, or the two main important qualities that one should look for in a man or a woman. So my final piece of advice, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best, in reiterating all of this, is really give yourself a chance to observe whether those qualities are there, right? It can be very easy to allow yourself to let love blind you, but it's not about love. So love is important, and having that feeling is important, but understand that qalb, the word qalb, which means heart, it also means yaqlib, means to flip. So when I flip something in Arabic, I uqallibu, I turn it over. And so qalb, the heart, and uqallibu have the same root word, meaning they share similar meanings. What does this mean? What do we derive from this Arabic, from the root of the Arabic language? What do we derive from this? Is that the heart is prone to change. Someone can be very high in love, and then the next day they hate the person that they see. And this can happen. So what's very important is that you see those qualities, because you can fall out of love. You're not in control of that feeling. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is in control of the hearts. Someone that you're in love with today could be someone that you hate tomorrow. And nasty divorces can happen. If a woman marries someone who is strong and honest, and he shows that honesty from the beginning, even if they fall out of love later, he will be just with her during the divorce process, right? And the same thing if a guy looks at a woman who's modest. Modesty, having shame, being ashamed of yourself, these are all things that are very important, because a woman can have a hijab, but if she's not modest, she has no shame, she can spill her husband's secrets out to everybody. And if there's a nasty divorce happen, she'll have no shame, she'll just expose whatever faults there is of the husband and drag out and make a very nasty divorce process for the husband. So if she has modesty, if she has shyness, she'll be just with the husband during the divorce process. And that's really what you're looking for. You're looking for, is this a person who, even if I didn't love her, she would treat me well, she'd be a good person? Because if she is, then if you do have problems later on in the marriage, it can be fixed, it can be solved. If a woman has modesty, she can learn from her mistakes. It doesn't matter if she doesn't know how to cook, it doesn't matter if she doesn't know all of these little things. All of that, any mistake, any fault that a woman has can be fixed, because if she has modesty, if she has shyness, she's going to have those qualities that allow her to grow emotionally. And the same thing with the man. Any shortcomings that he has, if he's strong, if he's competent, if he loses his job, he will work very hard to get it back. If he's honest, he's not going to cheat, he's not going to bring haram money into the house, you know. And again, if a problem happens between the two of you, and may Allah never let this happen, but sometimes it happens, and sometimes it's just the way it is. If a divorce happens, you'll have someone who will treat you with integrity and not try and destroy you. And the same thing with the woman. She'll treat you with respect. She'll be modest. She'll have shyness. She won't just expose you because she's mad at you, right? And the divorce process will go smoothly, and everyone can go on their way. And that type of couple is also the least likely to get divorced. They're also the most likely to solve their problems. So that's what I would say are the main qualities that one should look for in a man or a woman. Brothers and sisters, give yourselves time during the engagement period or during the marriage period to see those qualities hopefully before you sign the nikah contracts. And if you've already signed the nikah contracts, then make sure that those qualities are there, because you don't want to be stuck in a marriage that turns out to go sour because you didn't give yourself time to look for those good qualities. So that's it. Anything good I say is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, anything wrong I said is from myself. Trying to give you guys the main qualities as it was mentioned in the Quran, because the Quran has the wisdom that we need, and the words of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, has, gives us the wisdom that we don't necessarily always think on our own. If anyone has any questions, please let me know. Put it in the comments below. Jazakallah khair. Thank you. Peace out. Assalamu alaikum.